Hello everyone, you have come to Tata Comic Preview channel. This is an art collage novel video. I made this series so you guys can experience the story faster. The video will focus on the character's psychology, the images are for illustration purposes only. In a dark underground cave, two men in black robes sat facing each other. There was a huge golden array in between them. The light it emitted shone on the two of them, and their shadows were extremely long in the cave, constantly flickering. The golden formation was actually transparent from the inside out. A demon beast with long hair was constantly struggling and screaming inside, trying to break out of the formation but was helpless. Upon closer inspection, it turned out to be a huge green rat. Its eyes flickered with spiritual light, and it seemed to still have a certain level of consciousness. The formation pressed down on its body, as if it was trapped in a space, unable to break free. A few strange symbols on the formation flickered with golden light, and the golden force continued to sink down. Each time, it made the green rat feel abnormal pain, and it gradually gave up resisting. The black-robed man on the left chanted a sword spell and shouted "Condense." The golden formation quickly shrank where his index finger pointed, condensing into a ball of light gold and melting down, completely wrapping the green rat inside. The green rat let out a terrified cry and struggled a few more times, but every time it touched the golden light, it felt an intense pain all over its body and finally stopped moving. The man on the right heaved a sigh of relief. He stood up and smiled happily. Another one. He took out a ring-shaped profound-level weapon with a few bells hanging on it, making a clear and crisp sound. There were a total of 5 bells, 3 of which were white, and the other 2 were yellow and gold. Upon a closer look, there were actually mini rats scuttling inside the bells. He threw this profound-level weapon into the air and it started to spin. In an instant, it grew several times bigger and filled the entire underground cave. The 5 bells constantly let out crisp sounds. Golden, yellow, and white light flickered on the surface. The green rat trapped by the golden power below was slowly sucked up and flew towards a white bell. Ding-ling. Ding-ling. When the green rat was sucked into it, the color of the bell immediately turned navy blue. There were more colors circulating on the ring: green, gold, yellow, white, and even more gorgeous. The black-robed man revealed a satisfied smile. With a light wave of his hand, the silver ring fell back into his hand and he kept it. Only 2 left, this 5 elements beast taming ring is about to be successfully refined. 3 of the 5 elemental rat kings have disappeared. I'm afraid that the rat emperor in the center has already noticed. The last 2 will only be more difficult than the last. Ha! There's no difficulty. Even the rat emperor is our ultimate goal. It would be great if it was that simple. God knows how many 5 elements spirit-devouring rats there are in the demon plane. If we were to fall into it, even you and I would find it difficult to escape unscathed. Isn't this spreading false news and letting those idiots enter the demon land to attract the rat emperor's attention? The birth of Noah's ship. There are actually people who believe this rumor. What a group of fools. I also happen to find Tangjia in the Light Song Woodland, so it's a good opportunity to build up momentum. However, it didn't seem to be very effective. There weren't many experts who had entered the demon land. However, Ingluo, those demon clan people are a little strange. We should pay more attention to them. Monster race? Are you referring to the young man who killed the soul-splitting type Gu? It was indeed strange. Focus on that young man, the minions of the Soul Devourer clan, the people from the Merchant Union, and Xiao Huanghao Lian. Leave the rest to their own devices. The demon clan is indeed a bit strange. We can lead other forces to eliminate the minions of the Soul Devourer clan, but it's strange that the 7 members of the Merchant Union are here. As for Haolian Xiao Huang, he's one of the 9 heavenly emperors. If there are too many of them, this heavenly martial realm will be a bit crowded. Why don't we make a move and kill him directly? No need. The chances of breaking through to the 9 heavenly emperor stage are very low. Moreover, this guy has a senior brother in the Lanxue sacred region and a junior brother in the Soul Formation Sea. Although we, the Myriad Stars Valley, are not afraid, we should not deliberately make enemies. If he can really form the laws and condense the Emperor Qi, it won't be too late to make a move then. If Gu Feiyang were still alive, our Myriad Stars Valley would still have some fear. Now that he's dead, it doesn't matter if I kill the trash disciples he left behind. Don't forget our ultimate goal, which is to refine the 5 elements beast taming ring and subdue the Rat Emperor. Getting rid of the Soul Devourer clan's minions and stopping young Emperor Hao Lian from advancing to the martial supreme realm was just something he did in passing. If it affects the proper business, no one can bear the responsibility. After the two of them finished speaking, the entire underground cave returned to darkness and deathly silence. Not a single sound could be heard. In the sky above the vast demon plains, a golden sun battleship was flying at high speed. Xianbing's expression was extremely unsightly, as cold as ice. He had a gloomy expression on his face and didn't move for a long time. Bang! He punched a hole through a metal plate on the Golden Sun battleship, and his eyes were filled with anger. What kind of profound level weapon did the other party have that could directly destroy the battleship? With two 2-star revered martial artists working together, they could even restrain him. He really couldn't think of a way to regain his face, get the jade tablet and the ancient bell, and go back to make up for his mistakes. Lord Xianbing, there's someone in front. A martial royal realm expert's pupils contracted as if he had discovered something. He pointed at a few small black dots that were slowly moving in front of him. Xianbing focused his gaze and saw 9 black dots in front of him. They were actually 9 blue wolf chariots, slowly advancing at the end of his sight. Motherfucker, what kind of trash is this? The one using the blue wolf chariot must be some trash mercenary group. They were all annihilated. Xianbing's mood was extremely bad, and he gave the order without thinking. Yes. The order was quickly passed down. The Golden Sun warship accelerated and soon closed the distance between them and the Blue Wolf chariots. A powerful attack was launched, covering all 9 chariots. They had no way to escape. The 9 chariots came to a halt, and one of them turned around. A man on top of the chariot looked coldly at the incoming attack. The structure of the chariot was very simple, and its advantage was that it could be easily operated by only one person. Ripple Scamper, Spatial Transformation. The person on the car was the High Priest of the Demon Race, Mr. Yu. The space in front of him suddenly twisted, and the straight shockwave began to spin in the sky. Its radius became smaller, and finally, it condensed towards the end and disappeared in the sky. The distorted space also bounced away as if nothing had happened. Using spiritual power to warp space? Xianbing, who was on the Golden Sun warship, was so shocked that his eyes almost fell out of their sockets. As a 3-stars Martial Supreme, he had a lot of knowledge. Only powerful alchemists could directly distort space with their mental power. His heart continued to sink. His intuition told him that something bad had happened, as if he had kicked an iron plate again. The 9 Blue Wolf chariots stopped moving. They all turned around and headed toward the Golden Sun warship. If he was really a great alchemist, why would he use such a garbage chariot? Could it be that they were a group of perverts who liked to pretend to be pigs to eat tigers? A pair of cold and sharp eyes immediately jolted him back to his senses from his wild guesses. Who are you people? Xianbing's heart was filled with vigilance, and he did not dare to underestimate this martial emperor in front of him. Not to mention anything else, just the look in her eyes alone was enough to make his hair stand on end. On the other chariot sat a young man. His skin was so pale that it was almost transparent, and even the blue veins could be seen clearly. An extremely demonic expression flashed across his face as he smiled and said, "He didn't even know who we were and just killed us. Rain, are humans so bored nowadays?" Mr. Yu seemed to be very respectful to the young man. He turned around and saluted, "Lord Sheng, it was an accident. I don't know where this green onion came from, but he's probably a lunatic." When Xianbing heard this, he was instantly enraged. He was a martial honor, yet he was called a scallion and a lunatic? What was even more infuriating was that none of these people in front of him had the cultivation of a martial honor. However, those lazy and disdainful eyes clearly showed that they did not put him in their eyes. Everyone's words are very unpleasant to hear. I am Xianbing of the Flying Frost sect. Who are you? Flying Frost sect? You frowned. What are you doing in the demon land? What, are you afraid? Xianbing sneered. His heart relaxed a little. It seemed that the other party at least knew the strength of his sect and didn't dare to be impudent. What's the point of wasting time? The young man called Sheng chuckled. Leave this 3 stars Martial Venerable here and interrogate him while we walk. Kill the rest. Yes. You replied respectfully. When he raised his head again, his eyes were filled with killing intent. High Priest, there are quite a lot of people here. I'm here to exercise and help you. A demonic-looking man leaped up from another chariot and landed on the Golden Sun warship with a smile. His smile was so cold that it sent chills down the spines of all the martial emperors on the warship. Xianbing also felt a great sense of danger. Although these demonic people didn't have strong cultivation bases, they gave him an extremely dangerous feeling. He suddenly roared, "Everyone, be careful. Let's attack together and exterminate these bastards." Mr. Yu's face was extremely cold. He raised his taillight sword high and slashed down at the warship. The cold sword chi tore through the air and slashed at the Golden Sun battleship. The sword radiance cut through the Golden Sun battleship as if it was cutting a cake. Xianbing was instantly dumbfounded. This was a 7th-tier Golden Sun battleship. Even if he attacked with all his strength, it would be impossible to destroy it. What kind of people were there in the demon plains? Why was one more perverted than the other? Boom. The Golden Sun battleship was completely split in half before he could react. It exploded in the air and fell. There were also many alchemists among them, and they all looked outside in horror. At this moment, the man who was standing on the other half of the Golden Sun battleship moved. The smile on his face never changed. It was as if he was a statue, and it made people's hair stand on end. He spread his hands, and bat-like wings appeared on his body. He then flew toward the martial royal realm experts. Xianbing's heart was filled with shock, and a sense of danger he had never felt before welled up in his heart. Other than the 2 who had attacked, the others all had cold expressions on their faces, not caring in the slightest. That kind of ridiculing indifference was definitely not an act, but a high and mighty one who was coldly watching the show. You dare to underestimate us. Feeling humiliated, Xianbing roared, 4-way explosion. All of you, die. The power of the domain of a 3 stars Martial Venerable radiated out, and all those below the Martial Venerable realm were like ants. His face revealed a fierce look. If there were no accidents, he could suppress everyone by himself. But unfortunately, there were many accidents today. The space around Mr. Yu twisted slightly and isolated his domain. The light from the taillight sword in his hand grew brighter and gave off a dangerous feeling. The other bat-like demon was frozen in the domain, unable to move. The monster race man was furious and scolded, "What kind of crap is this? How can a mere domain trap me?" His body gradually began to emit a dark purple aura, which swirled around him. More and more of it gathered, as if it wanted to break through the pressure. You frowned. Lord Wing, your body is still very weak. Don't move. Let me do it. He focused his sword force, and the spatial power in the surroundings slowly gathered on the sword, emitting an abnormal light that became more and more dazzling. Suddenly, he slashed down with the sword, and a piece of space instantly expanded like an air sac, shattering the 4-sided domain. At the same time, the expansion of the space didn't slow down and continued to expand in Xianbing's direction, turning everything in its path into fragments. Half of the Golden Sun battleship's tail was penetrated by the spatial energy, and it was instantly reduced to golden powder, scattering all over the sky. Xianbing's pupils contracted, and he gasped in fear as he retreated. The other party's sword had already exceeded the scope of his understanding. A martial venerable had comprehended the rules of heaven and earth and condensed his own territory power. It was an understanding of the rules of heaven and earth. That was why he was unrivaled under the 8 Desolation realm. But Mr. Yu destroyed his domain with one strike. How was this possible? There was no time for him to think. Rain's figure shot up like a ghost. It was so fast that it almost hit him. Xianbing's heart skipped a beat, and he unleashed all his potential as a 3-stars martial supreme. His fist glowed with light as he roared and punched Mr. Yu's face. Yu's eyes flashed with a trace of fear. He also threw out a punch with his left hand. His arm suddenly expanded to 3 or 4 times its size. It was completely disproportionate to his body. He met the punch with force. Bang! There was no trickery, it was a complete clash of strength. A powerful light burst out in the sky like the sun, and blood spurted out as Xianbing's body slowly fell back. Meanwhile, Yu was still standing there, his face as calm as water. It was as if he had done something insignificant. He injured a martial supreme with one punch. The rest of the Flying Frost Sect's martial monarchs opened their mouths wide in fear. Xianbing was undoubtedly their pillar of support, and now that he had been torn apart, they lost all will to fight. After the domain's power dissipated, Wing snorted coldly, as if he was extremely angry. He retracted the purplish-black aura back into his body, spread his bat wings, and rushed into the group of martial emperors. Like a wolf entering a flock of sheep, he began to slaughter wantonly, and for a time, he screamed in pain. Many martial emperors had joined forces, but they were still no match for him. One of Xianbing's arms was almost completely blown off, and his face was covered in blood. He looked at the figure in the sky with horror, then fell to the ground and spat out another mouthful of blood. The massacre ended very quickly. The ground was covered in corpses, and all kinds of internal organs and limbs were scattered all over. Wing did not seem to be satisfied. He twisted his neck and roared at the sky as if he was suffocating. Sheng maintained his smile and said softly, after consuming the blood of the soul-splitting Koan, Yu's body has indeed become much stronger. This secret technique is truly impressive. As expected of our monster race's high priest. Wing seems to be a little unstable again, said Li, a female demon beside him. Let him be, said Sheng, unconcerned. The martial honor human will lead the way. We'll continue on our way. After he finished speaking, he turned the direction of the chariot and drove forward. Yes. Yes, master. Li waved her fingers in the air. Xianbing's body rushed over and was restrained by her. She sent a few rays of light into his body. The aura of a martial supreme gradually disappeared from Xianbing's body, and he became an ordinary person without any fluctuation of yuan qi. The pupils of the men on the other 3 chariots contracted. They watched Li's attack with a serious expression, as if they were trying to see through something. They didn't blink, but they were disappointed in the end. They still found nothing. These 3 people were Tang Jia, Mu Wu, and Yuan Sun. However, their auras were completely sealed, just like Xianbing's. There was no fluctuation of vital qi at all. Each of them was dejected and looked defeated. After Li Feng finished Xianbing, he looked at the 3 of them and said, "We don't have enough chariots, so this person will take one with you." The Blue Wolf chariot was very small, so it was very crowded for 2 people. Tang Jie's face changed. He snorted. "I'm a distinguished guest of your skeleton mercenary corps. The Yang key is still in my hands. You better be polite to me. If you throw it at me, I'll kill him immediately." Mu Wu also said angrily. Only Yuan Sun pinched his nose, frowning as he muttered, covered in blood, "It's so dirty. I'll just make do with it. Who asked me to become your captive?" He didn't look like he was wronged at all. His eyes were burning with evil fire and his face revealed a sinister smile. Li was expressionless as he threw Xianbing onto Yuan Sun's chariot. "Don't kill him, or I'll kill you." Don't worry. I'll be very gentle." Yuan Sun covered his mouth and chuckled. He pulled the unconscious Xianbing into his arms and began to show concern. Blarg. Mu Wu could not help but throw up outside the chariot. He quickly activated the formation on the chariot and chased after Sheng. He only felt that it was extremely dangerous to be within 100 meters of that pervert. Along the way that pervert looked at him had already caused him to almost break down. If not for the fact that his dantian had been completely sealed, he would have killed that pervert even if it meant death. Tang Jia couldn't stand it anymore. He was drenched in cold sweat as he chased after the crowd. Wang went berserk in the air for a while. He clutched his head with both hands as if he had a splitting headache. He wailed and struggled in the air. The demonic chi on his body fluctuated. At one moment, he was like a mortal, and at another moment, he was at the level of a martial emperor. All of a sudden, he froze in midair and stopped struggling. His eyes gradually returned to their usual calmness, and he retracted his murderous aura. Then, he returned to the chariot and gave chase. Soon, the 9 beams of light disappeared into the sky, leaving only corpses and broken pieces of battleships on the ground. After the time it took to brew a cup of tea, the space rippled like water, and in the center of the ripples, a battleship slowly sailed out. An 8th-grade netherworld warship. The battleship appeared in the sky, and the space returned to calm. This netherworld battleship was even more imposing and majestic than the Flying Frost sects. There was a huge symbol printed on it, which seemed to be the symbol of some sect. Several figures appeared on the warship, all of them looking down at the debris and corpses with grave expressions. A few figures flew down and checked the debris and corpses, then quickly returned to the warship. One of the scouts came forward and reported, "Lord I Ching, those are people from the Flying Frost sect, and those who died were all alchemists and martial emperors. From the looks of their wounds, most of the martial emperors were killed in a single strike before they were cruelly split apart." I Ching's hair was like clouds, and his pitch-black eyes revealed a serious expression. He said in a deep voice, "Although it's just a rumor, it still attracted a lot of forces. Those people from before didn't show much strength, but they gave people a strange feeling. They had easily killed the experts of the Flying Frost sect. Ding me, do you have any impression of those people?" Behind him, a yellow-robed old man furrowed his brows and thought for a long time before replying, "Sir I Ching, in my memory, there is no such person in the entire western regions. They can easily kill Wu Zun with a single punch. They are definitely on my list of suspects, but I have no information on them at all." I Ching grew suspicious and muttered, "Could it be that he crossed regions? It shouldn't be. For such a little bit of gossip." Another clean-faced middle-aged man in embroidered robes suddenly said, "Lord I Ching, among the 9 people just now, there seemed to be one person who looked very much like Tang Jia." I Ching's pupils contracted. "Are you sure?" he asked in shock. The middle-aged man looked troubled. "I just feel that they look very similar. I've also dated Tang Jia a few times, and our appearance and demeanor are very similar. It's just that Tang Jia is a martial royal realm expert. I can't feel any power from that person just now." I Ching fell into deep thought and gazed in the direction the 9 people left. He said in a serious voice, "If it's really Tang Jia, then we're in trouble. Those people give me a very dangerous feeling, I really don't want to be their enemy." Ding Mi hesitated and said, "Lord I Ching, what should we do now? The demon land was vast and boundless, and even the 3 great mercenary groups that spent their days in it might not know the way. If we want to find that Tang Jia, it's no different from looking for a needle in a haystack." I Ching stood at the bow of the ship in deep thought, and all kinds of complicated expressions flashed through his eyes. Finally, he opened his mouth and spat out a word, "I chase." The netherworld battleship turned into a beam of green light and disappeared into the horizon. It was much faster than the 9 blue wolf war chariots. Sheng, who was flying ahead, suddenly smiled. Li, who was riding with him, suddenly had an idea. "Lord Sheng, should we stop and deal with the pursuers?" He smiled and shook his head, "Let's wait and see. The ones who came this time seem to have some strength. We're no longer the same as we were in the past, and we can't afford to offend just anyone. It's best to exercise some restraint." "Yes, Lord Sheng." Li's face regained its calmness and he no longer asked. Beside him, other than Yi and Yu, there were 2 other demons. Their bodies were slightly burly, and their faces were stiff and expressionless.